Welcome back, students. This is our last C++ programming project of the semester, and we're finishing up the organizer that we built last week. You can see here I have my organizer project open, but you should notice a few things different about it. That is that now instead of just having two columns in my organizer, the item name and the artist, I now have four columns. I now have added genre and tracks. Some of you did that with your project last week and added a few extra things, and that was a great idea. This week you're going to have a total of at least four columns, and I'd like you to add genre, which means the type of music, and then the tracks. As we know, all albums have a certain number of songs on the album, and so we'll add that. Another thing you should see on this organizer that's quite a bit different is you have this button here called Add New Item. We'll go ahead and click that, and we see that a form opens up here that allows me to actually add data to my form or to my data grid so that I can edit the organizer. That makes it a lot more functional. So I'm going to go ahead and gosh, there's I think an album called 12 by Adele. I think that's the right number. And the genre would be pop, and the tracks are 11. Okay, and I can go ahead. You can see when I click add. If I look through the artist now and organize it by alphabetical, you can see sure enough Adele, the artist, is in first place, and you can see the name of the album and the genre and the tracks. So it works just perfectly. Okay, so we're going to go on now and show you how you can edit your organizer form to add these features. One thing you can go ahead and just start with the organizer project that you turned in from last week and just add to it. You don't need to create a new project. Okay, here we go. Okay, the first thing we need to do to edit our program so that we can have multiple columns is we need to open up the Data XML file, which you'll find here in Solution Explorer. Double click it, open it. You'll see your file open with all your items with the item name and the artist. However, as you can see here, I've gone ahead and already started editing mine so that I've added two more items, two more classifications, I should say, to each of them. So I have the item name for the song, then the artist, but now I have genre and the tracks after each one. You can see that they're listed all on one line, and there's no comma between each one. However, there are double quotes surrounding the value for each pair. Okay, so just to demonstrate what you do here, you just go ahead and type in here. I've got one that I haven't finished yet, and I'm just going to put genre. Okay, make sure you spelled that right. And then equals, and you can see it already automatically puts the quotes in for me. Well, the genre of this is rock and roll, and then I'm not quite sure how many tracks are on that album, but I'll just make something up. Tracks equals, and inside the quotes I'll just put 10. Okay, and now I have gone ahead and edited the last of my songs and album titles here so that I now have genre and tracks. You need to do that for all 7 songs that are in your Data XML. When you're done, go ahead and save that. Save the Data XML. Make sure the file name is spelled exactly like that, data capital D .xml. If you call the file something else, it won't work when it comes time to read the data out of this file. Once you're done, go ahead and save it and close it. Okay, to continue with our project, what you need to do next is open up the form1.h file, which is your form in design view. You can see this should look familiar from last week. We simply have the data grid view and we have an exit button, and that was the basic program. If you have more than that, that's fine. What we need to do is add a few things. We're going to have to make the window here a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull it down so we have a little bit more room at the top. Okay, because I want to add some buttons up there. And we'll just even make it a little bit bigger, I think. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and just add a regular old button. We can add 2, as you saw in my sample program. The reason for that is I'm going to show you how you can control things with two different controls. You can have a button and a menu item, and they can do the same thing, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's take button 1. We're going to take its text property and call it on its, say, add item. How about add new item? I think is what I had. Add new item. That's the text on the button. And on this one you want to change the text so it says close. I think you know how to do that, so we'll get back in a second. Okay, I have my two new buttons, and I also want to add another item to my menu strip, so I select the menu strip down here. And to the right of the exit button, let's just type in add new item, so that I also have a menu item that represents the same thing as this button right here. So again, they do the same thing, but it just shows you how you can have two controls that do the same thing. We'll show you about that in a little bit. Okay, let's just move my buttons down a bit. Alright, next I want you to double click on the Add New Item button, and we're going to go ahead and add the code that will control how we add new items to our data grid. Okay, we see in here that since I double clicked on that button, I've gone ahead and it's created a new method to handle the clicking of that button. It's just called button one click. Okay, so go out to the right, click at the end of that, enter, and we want to go ahead and add the following code to this method. First of all, we are going to have a form called add item. We don't have it yet, but we're going to have one in a little bit. And this it represents an object that we can use, and so we'll going to make a new add item object here in our code. So add item, then the caret symbol, we'll call it the add item window, and we are going to create a new add item object. Okay, go to the next line. The add item window that we just created, we want to have it show its dialog window, which just means to open up so that we can see it. Okay, so that just simply tells the form to open, and then we're going to say this. Remember our DS list from before? Remember that DS list is just a data set list that holds all of our data in memory so that we can do things like display it in the data grid window. So I'm going to say this data set list. I'm going to clear it, which might seem strange, but remember, every time we open it now, we're going to be adding new things to it, and we want to clear the memory of the data set list before we try to read out of it or add new things to it. So I'm going to clear it first, and then with this data set list, I'm now going to read it again, read the XML, like I did last time, and I have to give it the name of the file that I'm reading from. Okay. So at this point, we're just reading again the data in the Data XML. We aren't writing anything to that window yet. We do that in the other form, and I'll show you that in a bit. And then I just refer to the My Grid object, which we know is what we called our data grid view. We're setting its data source and assigning that to the DS list item that we just referred to above. And then last but not least, this My Grid, and telling its data member to be the items, and that's with a lowercase I, item, that we referred to in our data.xml file. Alright, so that should look somewhat familiar. Some of these lines are exactly the same from up above. Some are a little bit different. Okay, and again, this is inside that button that we just clicked. Let's go ahead back now to our form design view, and we'll show you how you can have two different items that control the same object. Here we have the Add New Item menu strip item. So let's just double click on that now, And we know that again it'll create a new method for that. So let's go down one line. We just need to go ahead and select all the code. Make sure you get all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of code that are in that method. I'm going to right click and say copy, and I'm going to come down here and right click and say paste. Okay, so now I've simply added all the code that was in the button click method. Now I've added it to that menu strip item click method. So now they do the exact same thing. Really not all that complicated. Let's go back to our form design view here, and let's go ahead once again. Here we have a close button, and we want it to basically do the same thing as the exit button is close the program. So let's double click that. Go to the end of the method line, hit enter, and just type close, opening and closing parentheses, and now we have another button or item on the form that will close the program. Okay, so we've done all the editing that we need to do to our form1.h file, which is our original form, and we're going to go on in our next video to show you how to create the new form, Windows form, and use it then to add items to your data file in the organizer.